What the hell?
And we are here live with the People's Pride Project.
Hello, hello.
And the People's
It,
Pride Project is not an LGBT organization.
we are here. It is Tuesday. That means that it's couch conversation time. Y'all know what that is. It's casual, intellectual conversations for the people. So we're going to keep it real loose. We're going to keep it real comfortable. Today, there's been a lot going on. Today happens to be a holiday. Dr. Shakir, I don't know if you have partaken of the Blessed Sacrament as of yet, but I will be as soon as we get done here. It is 420. And to all of those, happy 420. Today's conversation, I have a guest that I'm very much looking forward to. This is my friend. This is someone I hold dear. Dr. Quintarrius Shakir, crisis manager, sociologist, entrepreneur, and hooligan. Now, he's here today sitting with me. We're going to talk a little bit about spiritual warfare. And I think that irony in that is with all of the things that are happening today, with the Chauvin verdict coming out and all of these things, it kind of leans itself into this discussion about how we use our spirituality as a means of liberation and where it comes from. Rugon, do you agree, disagree?
No,
Are
I,
we on
I,
the
I
same
mean,
page?
yeah, I agree. When I was born a millennia ago, but when I was, my first incarnation, I was a prostitute, and I used my spiritual energy to help liberate these niggas. You know what I'm saying? And somehow along the way, my descendants have totally transformed my practices into getting BBLs and getting flued out. This ain't liberation. They call it feminism. They just getting played.
Oh, well, I'm not mad at it. Um, a lot of us right now, like you see this big rush to join all these ATRs and find our indigenous roots and things like that. And I think that it's not really coincidental that this is happening while we're experiencing civil unrest because spirituality in Black and Brown communities have always, it's been a method to fight back. It's been a subversive method a lot of times. And even a lot of times we've been out on Front Street with our shit. Like, but it's been used in a multitude of ways to really evoke change. And I'm kind of questioning if we're getting it right this time.
Um, when you talk about like it, spiritual African spiritual traditions being practiced in subversive ways, I'm thinking about a lot of history. Like I was taking I think it was like Southern Heritage Studies or something when I was in undergrad, and they were talking about how it was like basically like Black resistance moments during a Black resistance movement, such as how
Mhm.
the enslaved people would pour certain powders and herbs onto the ground, pit bulls that were chasing a whatever type of I don't keep vicious animals except in my pants. But no, they those anytime those canines were following enslaved people, they would smell the powder and get a nosebleed. You know what I'm saying? So it's like in those ways, thinking about how those powders act as poisons. People were casting invisibility spells using simple astronomy and advanced astrology to plan out and plot escapes and escape routes. And then in addition to that, if we think about it on a Black astrological level, it wasn't until the 1860s, like it was like in the early to mid 1800s, that we saw there was a global Black resistance movement from the Haitian Revolution to the emancipation. To us being emancipated, Juneteenth.
Mhm.
And then we can also think of other Caribbean, enslaved Caribbean people or enslaved South American people that were resisting during that time. We think about Nat Turner. for example, and how Nat Turner made his push, around the time of the Haitian Revolution. Now, that all being said, it wasn't until the ninth, like after we discovered Pluto, So we're talking about the discovery of Pluto, and again, Black astrology. We're thinking about the 1940s to the 1970s, where we saw a global divestment, where white supremacy started to divest from slavery and overt racial oppression. So what we hear about are the ways in which Black Christians use their political, social, and intellectual capital to negotiate new terms or for a more advanced or more subversive slavery, right? But we don't hear about the hoodoo practitioners. We don't hear about the conjure workers. All we know are that the Vodouisant rose up and sent Napoleon ass packing. But we know very, very little in terms of the academic texts that are covering people that have worked at, the people that use conjure to liberate and empower and ensure that we have autonomy. We know that we have, and even as African Americans, we think about hoodoo and how similar it is to those African traditional religions, and that in order for us to learn about the on the ground real world activities that our ancestors participated in, especially those magical activities, we have to hear it through anecdote, oral tradition. We have a grandmother that may have practiced, or a friend whose grandmother or great grandmother practiced. You know what I'm saying? And so we know that we know that hoodoo, magic, and spirituality have had an influence on the ways in which these movements have transformed, developed themselves, and the ways in which Black people have unified one another. But still, because these practices are occult and they've been practiced in the dark, it makes sense that they've been rendered invisible in academic literature and maybe even in the public consciousness. We have to think about that as well. So where did we get lost? I'm not exactly sure if we got lost. Now, there's a theory that one of my students, Hunsi Andizo, has, where she says that the ancestors that practice were able to predict that y'all were about to be out here again, getting these goddamn BBLs, fighting on love and hip hop, running across pool tables and throwing bottles at one another, going in Facebook groups and creating Skittle jars and Snicker jars, calling them honey jars and shit, crap niggas. They knew that y'all wasn't gonna use it for the right shit. They knew that y'all wasn't gonna use these practices to liberate. Y'all gonna try to trap these niggas into these relationships that y'all don't really want to be in. Okay, they saw it. See, the thing is, our ancestors saw the destruction of the Black family before the Moynihan report wrongfully and rightfully predicted some of what was going to happen. They saw what the fuck was happening. They said, shit, we can't get married. And we know this magic is ours. Just imagine what would happen if we take these powerful spiritual technologies and use them in our dysfunctional communities. When our communities were functioning, we were creating empires. But now we're going to use this magic under dysfunctional and oppressive, hegemonically oppressive conditions. So it makes sense that you have all these people who are damn near brainless or ignorant to how these traditions were intended to be used. There's a clear disconnection between present day African Americans and the originators and original the indigenous practitioners of West African magic, otherwise known as voodoo, hoodoo, and us. We want to use our magic for contemporary purposes, which are fine. Contemporary purposes are fine. You need to get some money, that's cool. You need extra help on your rent, that's cool. You want to start $1 million business, awesome. You want to get that Black cryptocurrency started, great. But let's talk about the other contemporary problems, ones that are new to us, such as I don't know, how people use social media to spy on one another, and now they're using nations as a new form of technology to surveil what people do. In addition to scouting out people's Instagram. So you don't have people using these. You don't have Black people using these systems, again, to liberate, educate, build community. We are instead fucking doing stress magic, trying to pay a bill that we should have budgeted for, and intimidating each other. And that's another thing. We want to use music. We want to threaten. We want to threaten people that can physically beat our ass. You want to go on Facebook and yell at this random troll who doesn't give a fuck if you're a child of Oshun. They are a child of somebody named Bobby Johnson, who will take a pack of Newports and a 40, sit it down next to their ashy ankles and beat your ass, and go back to smoking that new pack and drinking that 40 because you're a child of Oshun. Meanwhile, you're going to go home and do a sour jar, and this person had already caught their goons. And I don't think a muslin doll can protect you from bullets. Muslin dolls and mason jars are not bulletproof vests. And so we got a lot of people out here playing. So again, these religions were supposed to be used for protection, liberation, empowerment, and maybe even entertainment to some degree, because there is some parts of this that is entertaining. But outside of that, you travel into these Facebook groups and you see the questions that people ask in public. Again, we're watching how people interact with private occult knowledge in public. They ain't doing what our ancestors did. I don't see that.
Not at all. Not at all. Our ancestors, like you said, this was a whole technology. Like, we have to look at the fact that not only was it something created millennia ago in one space, it was used as, I don't want to say a security blanket, but it was used through the crossing as a way to hold on to home. And then when you're in this foreign place trying to make something in an oppressive situation, it was used like I feel like there's a power to it that we're missing, that we're not actively reaching toward. Like, it's all performative right now, or at least a big portion of it is. It's like, oh girl, let me light a candle on you, or oh, don't say you like my man because I'ma hex you. Girl, I could do more with a cup of water and some dirt from outside than you doing with a whole damn spell book. But you want to pop off like you got it like that, and it's so frivolous.
And that is now, and when we are putting our energy towards those types of trifling ass activities, we forget that we're actually creating history. A lot of you all, when you all die and your descendants do readings with your energy, you will be known as that ancestor that steals other people's men. You will be known as that ancestor that's good for fucking somebody, helping your descendants fuck somebody's married husband. You will be known as that ancestor that popped off about taking black pepper and going down to the graveyard and running to the grocery store and going to the farm and killing animals, and then you got your ass whooped. Your ancestor will be magically strong and leave you out here physically vulnerable to all types of ass whoopings and getting jumped. You know what I'm saying? You have to remember that every action that we take is being documented, and every action that we take is also being measured. And when it's being measured, they are literally saying this is the value of that particular action. And now that we have it documented, this is who you will become, and this is how much that action was worth, and this is how we can measure your own integrity. So a lot of you all are are operating out of the lowest vibrating ideas that come across the emptiness of your skull, and that's fine, that's cool. But don't bring that shit into magic. You ain't got to do magic and practice that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But guess what? You all will be known for continuing to bring this X-Men magic into African spiritual traditions. A lot of you all think that you're going to fight a spiritual war against a white person. No, the reality says that you're going to be fighting a spiritual war against your child's father, against your child's mother, against some family member, against somebody that said the wrong thing to you on Facebook. That's what y'all. Those are the wars that y'all are fighting, and that's what y'all are concerned with. And again, the hoodoo practitioners back then weren't concerned with that. But guess what? When your descendants, who we hope they know you, and because we hope you all know who y'all's children's parents are, so that you know. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But we hope that when your descendants do divinations and they ask you what was your life like, and you have to tell the truth, that you don't be sitting here like, yeah, girl, yeah, son, I used that. Do you know what the fuck I did with that urine jar? Do you know what I buried and what happened and what I tried to make happen? That's the wisdom that you all will leave y'all's descendants with. That's what y'all are leaving in y'all's grimoires too. That's the information that's going to help them. None of this is going to help them to and I continue to use the word liberate and empower, but I'm going to use it again. None of this will help to liberate them from an impoverished mindset. None of this is going to help them to reclaim their life so that they can create their own realities on their own terms, so that these realities not be influenced by white supremacy or Black dysfunction. And I don't think that you all are contributing to that these days. I think that you all want to maintain the status quo and put a new face on the status quo by adding crystals to your crown and putting damn nose rings and shit and black lipstick on and arching your eyebrows and shit, looking like a witch and taking photos like this. And you're still doing the same shit, different costumes, same shit, same trifling behavior. You're just doing it as a magical practitioner. And then, does that magic even work? That's the other thing. This is just, we ain't even got into that. That shit don't work. Y'all putting this energy towards these Pinterest craft projects and calling it magic, and the shit don't work.
And on top of that, you have to recognize where the power lies. You're only as powerful as those that have come before you, and you're only as powerful as those that allow you to get in where you fit in. So if it's already understood that you're on some fuck shit, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be canceled by something much higher than you. And now you're sitting there looking stupid.
So when you say they're going to be canceled by something that's much higher than you, here's the thing that I often find and this is funny. This is what I often find cancels people that are that perform those types of magical practices. Usually it is a very low vibrating energy that's stopping them. And it's not an ancestor. What's crazy is that the person performing those types of magical workings vibrates at the pits of hell. And one of the 7 deadly sins is able to stop them from doing the work. It's that bad when a demon is like, nope, that's too much for you to do. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I don't conduct divinations and see, oh, your magic didn't work because you didn't feed your ancestors enough, or you just didn't hit your target this week. You need to pray more. Usually I see it as the feeling of misery has distorted your vision and you can't hit your target ever. Lust is causing you to be overly aggressive. And so each time you perform this magical working, you apply too much pressure and you crush the opportunity. Mm-hmm. I often find that's the problem. And so, and that's a damn shame when we're reading off these vices and pathologies and they vibrate higher than you in terms of your character. And this is the other thing. A negative energy can be a powerful vibration. A lot of you all are powerful vibrators, but you don't have the keys to the kingdom. And I just, what are you leaving for your descendants to work with? And when I ask, what are you leaving? I'm talking about your ashe and your knowledge. You know what I'm saying? A lot
Mhm.
of you all that practice magic can't be taught without a mentor or without a book because your ancestors are motherfucking dumb. And your ancestors, the work that you're trying to do is work your ancestors have already done. And because your ancestors are in a certain type of intellectual bondage and they're egotistical, their egos are so enormous that they don't have the room to tell you that, hey, I need to be humble right now and let you know not to make the same mistakes as me. No, your ancestors like, shit, I ain't get it right, but maybe they can. And so some of y'all's ancestors are dance moms. You're allowing your
Mhm.
ancestors to live through you. They did trifling shit. They were lazy and they want to live through you. And you do a great job at venerating them. I see you.
So, if we're in this cycle of fuckery, led by ego, led by lack of knowledge, led by the commodification of our traditional religions, because that's a big problem too. Anybody and everybody can rub some twigs together and jump up and talk about they've got, all of this and they're selling and charging and whatever. How do we make an about face as a collective and get out of our own little bubbles and use this power, this sovereignty for what it's actually supposed to be used for? Because we really, at some point, we gotta make the switch, or we're going to stay in the same problems that we're having. This is bigger than the individual.
Well, some people need to they need to up level their understanding of spiritual warfare because they think of spiritual warfare and they should think of it this way. This is very important to me. Spiritual warfare being me versus white supremacy and all of its allies and accomplices and the people that continue to reproduce it, especially the white women. But they need to up level their understanding of spiritual warfare to be about, okay, well, sometimes you're fighting against a principality that is controlling someone else. A lot of the times the sisterhood or the brotherhoods that you all are trying to integrate yourselves into are being controlled by a feeling of distrust. And you have to come up with a project or a plan of action and make sure that it's foolproof. Make sure that it doesn't require anyone's assistance but yours. And then you go and offer it to the community and you help them out. There is going to be some resistance that you're going to experience. There is going to be some conflict that's going to happen, but that's the spiritual warfare that you need to be fighting. A lot of you all don't have destinies that involve fighting some white menace. And accept that. The enemy that you created in your brain is a creation or distortion that was influenced by mass media or some history textbook. And it's great for you to have that knowledge and to be aware of racism and these other forms of sociological oppression. However, you need to also be very informed about what your destiny is and who your actual enemy is. And so I'm usually trying to help people get out of a certain position because the position that they're in is I'm special and I'm here to help my community because I see there's so many problems in it. But they forget that they are also a part of the problem as well. And you're a part of the problem because you were born into it. You are a part of the problem because you are not your sister's keeper or your brother's keeper. You are your brother. And you are also a part of the problem simply because you are not a fourth dimensional being. You are a human being and you're going to make mistakes. And you're going to make mistakes that create obstacles for you in terms of helping you in terms of you completing your mission. You'll create obstacles for yourself. You'll become your own problem. And then that you have to turn yourself inward on another level and fight the spiritual warfare within. Now, mind you, I've been talking for the past 3 minutes and I've not mentioned anything about a white person. Fuck Steve Bannon. But when you go even a step deeper, what about when that spiritual warfare is ancestral? What about when the spiritual warfare means that you have to confront generational curses and be a generational curse breaker? And most people are so focused on helping other people break their generational curses and helping other people heal from their generational curses that they forget that feeling as though you have a savior complex is a generational curse. And feeling as though you have to be the independent Black woman or the strong Black man is a generational curse. At the end of the day, you can't be Captain Save-A-Ho. We all got to save each other. But first, we got to save ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's difficult for people to work in the complexity of spiritual activism because there's not a linear route to our liberation. It's not like you can be a politician or sit in the House of Representatives. See, the most effective representatives, I'm going to say something, and I know this is probably going to blow back in my face, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, baby, you stay on camera all the time, but you are one of the least effective politicians, according to the House of Representatives. Now, I'm thankful that she raises awareness on Twitter and social media. But the most effective politicians, such as this Black woman in Illinois, they focus on one or two initiatives for the year, and they rally people around those initiatives, and they make themselves effective, which is why we now see that there's an extension that women who are pregnant can now receive medical benefits for up to 1 year after they've been pregnant versus 3 months. Now, that is a phenomenal initiative that helps many Black women, right? But let's think about someone that's a lot more scattered in their mission, that thinks that the enemy is white supremacy, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's now ranked as one in the top 10% of least effective politicians in the House of Representatives. That's where we find many of our hoodoo practitioners, our voodooism, our AAPI priestesses and priests are in their bottom 90th percentile. They are educating people for money, not to enlighten these people. They're educating people because you paid me and I'm going to educate you. You're not educating them because there's a war on this person's life that's being waged every day. And we don't have to talk about those wars. If Derek Chauvin didn't get motherfucking found guilty, bitch, we could talk about all the injustices, okay? We know what happened to Breonna Taylor. There's a spiritual war on every Black person's life that goes beyond the state and globalized violence that's institutionalized violence that's enacted on us each and every day. We have to focus on pathology, patterns, dysfunction, autonomy, and agency. And we need to start, and we also need to stop underestimating the amount of latitude that we have to exercise being active activists in our own lives. And we need to have pointed approaches. One or two things that we are working on within ourselves to fix and master for ourselves. And then to go and teach it to other people. Those one or two other things. Mm-hmm. Stay y'all asses off camera. Get the fuck off social media. Stop listening to that Pharaoh nigga that with the dreads and shit. They be talking about Black history and don't teach y'all shit about working with y'all's motherfucking ancestors. Stop watching these fucking YouTube documentaries. Stop going in my motherfucking my motherfucking mystery school group with damn conspiracy theories. Stop that shit. You're not liberating anybody. You are fighting a spiritual war in yourself, and you're projecting inadequate initiatives onto us and mediocre messages and calling it liberation. As Black people, we've always drank lemonade. We don't drink pickle juice. And I think that at a certain point, those of us that are enlightened, we need to call out the pickle juice sellers. Mm. And we need to encourage the patrons of pickle juice sellers and lemonade stand owners to enlighten themselves and to be mindful about what they're getting, what they're purchasing, what they're absorbing, and what they're internalizing. Because if we don't, we will continue to see people out here doing. There's this bitch on Facebook that sold $45 honey jars and calling herself a mambo. I don't even want to bring this bitch website up, But Lord have mercy, she asked me where I was initiated, what lineage I had, and all I could think was, bitch, why are you selling $45 honey jars? Who are you liberating? Who are you helping? She called me a mystic. I call her a Minute Maid witch. And when I logged off of Facebook that day, I did 6 readings. And this bitch posted for 12 hours, 6 different comments about her interactions with me. And these other 3 dusty ass Hugon rallied around and supported her. Meanwhile, I was out here saving souls. That day, I had 50 people entering my free mentorship program. 10 of them went and said, hey, I learned more in the past 3 hours than I have in the past 3 years of studying this stuff. Now, in terms of spiritual warfare, I beat that bitch ass. And in terms of spiritual warfare for my mission, I killed my motherfucking mission, which was to educate and liberate our community. So I can walk and chew gum at the same time. But a lot of these other priests and practitioners cannot.
Okay, stop right there.
Nope, I'm getting off. Bye now. Goodbye.
No. This Negro right here. You said priest and practitioner. Everybody and their mama think that they're a priest. Would you like to elaborate on the difference or why the importance of the difference?
Yeah, let's talk about the difference and why it's important. First, let's talk about why it's important, and then we're going to get into the real tea. This is important because a priest is someone that has a relationship with the spirits. A practitioner is somebody that practices anything. You can be a practitioner of sex work. You can be a practitioner of voodoo. You can be a practitioner of being a notary. You can be a practitioner of being a president like Donald Trump. There's a lot of things you can practice. But a priest is someone that's specific, that's been trained and ordained to minister and be an intermediate on behalf of spirit, and also to be an intermediary between those that are practitioners and private citizens. Those that are practitioners and private citizens sit here. The priest, where my head is, I'm the priest, right? Sits here, and God is over here. Okay, so I'm right here. The private citizens and the practitioners are here, and God is right here. God trains the priests to heal the people. Now, when the private citizens overwhelm the priest is supposed to train practitioners. And those practitioners do the responsibilities that the priest cannot do. Now, it is important to know the difference so that y'all know who y'all are going to. Because the practitioner can only know what's been told to them materially via someone else or what they read in a book, orally or what they've read. Ain't nothing wrong with it. The priest, however, has a divine connection through spirit, by spirit, and is taught by spirit. And they know that they don't really need a mentor because they have the humility and a divine connection to God, where they can teach an unlimited range of courses and an unlimited range of spells. The practitioner, on the other hand, only knows how to practice. And a practitioner doesn't really focus as much on the application of wisdom as a form of magic. Again, a practitioner does not focus as much on the wisdom as a form, the application of wisdom as a form of magic. Okay, this is why you jump in those Facebook groups and them hoes, yes, them hoes be getting motherfucking mad. Bitch, I'm not in my 20s, bitch. I'm in my motherfucking 50s, okay? I'm old. I'm old school. You may not like this shit. When I see them hoes in them Facebook groups saying that they're about to do magic to get a man, and I ask, did you do a divination? And they get mad, I know them hoes are some practitioners. Because the wisdom that should be applied is, make sure that you assume that this is like defensive driving when you're practicing magic. Assume the worst case scenario. You cannot assume that the other driver is going to make room for you. You cannot assume that the ancestors or the spirits working with you are going to actually work with you. So you must assume the worst, hope for the best. Do a divination to make sure before you do this magic that everybody that's on your team is also supporting you, because everybody that's on your team doesn't always support you. Jesus could have learned that lesson. Now, that's wisdom, though. These practitioners don't give a fuck about wisdom. These practitioners see a problem and need some 1 + 1 = 3 motherfuckers. There's a problem. I got some magic and I must be the person to do it. No, that's not how that shit works. There are steps that these motherfuckers are skipping. And practitioners get mad when the priests come in and say there are rules. Hold on, pause. You can't do that. You got to do it this way. You got to be initiated to work with this Orisha. You got to be initiated to work with this Loa. Practitioners think that this is a free-for-all.
That part.
Practitioners are spiritually homeless people. They are panhandlers and snake oil salespeople. They have no home to bring you to. They sit on the street, they perform magic tricks, and they got a cup handed out. You see them all the time on Facebook. You want me? Let me give you an example. All right, y'all. You got your girl here, the garbage can goddess.
I can't do this with you right now.
And I'm about to all right, Sheena, do you want a love reading, a general reading, or a money reading? Oh,
I can't do this
with
you.
29 people online. I'm not going to be able to get to all of you all. If you want to skip the line, cash out me $20. Panhandling. Panhandling. Practitioners. It's the truth.
I'm not saying that it's not, but for me,
so that you don't go to these people and expect them to fix your life.
I don't go to people for much of anything just because of my nature in the first place. So we good. But my thing, and where I draw the line, more so than just the amount of knowledge, it's also about the amount of responsibility that I feel you're willing to take on that designates a priest, or differentiates rather a priest from a practitioner. Like, I feel like a practitioner is very much in their own little bubble, and it's very, like you were saying, the smaller things, whereas a priest recognizes, because they have this direct connect, that there's a certain level of responsibility that comes with that. So there's almost a need to walk between two worlds. And that's a job that you have to actually and consciously accept. Whereas a practitioner is just kind of like, well, I'm just doing what I do to make my day go by better, for lack of a better.
You know, I use the panhandler. I'm gonna use this example again. You know, the difference between because I know people in New York, and y'all have been to New York. I'm sure you all, especially when people first come to New York, I'm sure you are so impressed when you see somebody on the side of the street and they got their microphone set up, they baby mama standing next to them, and they got their baby in the car seat, and they are singing their ass off and playing a banjo. And you're like, oh my God, this person needs to get signed to a record deal. Why are they not signed? The world is so fucked up. And after about 2 weeks of seeing the same archetype 4 to 5 times a day begging you for money, you start to realize that this musician is a practitioner.
Mm.
But then you have the musicians that are priests that have like a lot of longevity, such as Beyonce. See, people I'm not gonna say the trite shit. I ain't a Beyonce fan. I'm going to use Beyonce as a case study for someone that Beyonce and SZA. I want to use them as case studies for people who know that wisdom is timeless. If you're a music artist, you know that the most successful music artists And we're measuring success by longevity, public perception, um, and the amount of world records that they set. So getting to the point, album rollouts. Why do people not do album rollouts anymore? Beyonce's albums may not have sold. I don't know how many. I don't know. I don't know what her album sales are looking like in comparison to other artists that are not. They don't have the same stature as her. She does album rollouts. Also, when she puts her music on an album, she thinks about like, okay, the way that an album has to be organized matters a lot. These new musicians, because they are practitioners and this is how they live and this is how they eat, they will put together a TikTok song, a bunch of TikTok songs on an album, release it, and they're ready and they made money. They can't tour off that album. That album is not gonna produce any singles that we hear in commercials. Now, Beyonce's Lemonade may hit #1 and it may sell a low 1 million copies, but she's able to tour because what she knows is that she's a musician. And the wisdom of a musician is this, that you are able to build longevity by proving your talents. And in addition to that, if you can create a cohesive project, people are going to remember a cohesive project, which is why SZA may not need to release another album for like 2 or 3 years just because of the way that she structured the album versus Chris Brown, who has a lot more celebrity, but has to release an album every year. Now, we're not calling him a practitioner or a musician. We're just going to stay focused on SZA and Beyonce and then use the comparison of the person in New York. So now bringing it back to the spiritualists, you have a lot of people on Facebook that their New York or their version of New York is Instagram, or it's their version of a psychic fair. They look like they're getting it out the mud. Those people are not getting it out the mud. Getting it out the mud means sitting and apprenticing under a priest. That's getting it out the mud. Because then you learn wisdom. And the other thing is that practitioners, when they read, they do divinations, they focus on accuracy, not spiritual development and self-improvement. It's a difference. Priests that focus on self-improvement, their readings are not always cut and clear. It's a lot of wisdom, parable that's spoken in those readings because that information is what? Timeless. Wisdom is timeless. Knowledge is for a time. And Beyonce knows that wisdom is timeless, which is why Throat Babies is not going to be timeless. Crazy in Love will be. It's the fact that Crazy in Love is the first song on the album. It's the fact that the last song on the album is about, there's a formula that should be followed. And when it's followed, we see that those artists in that top 10%, those people that work as priests of music, that Beyonce sits here where my head is rolling. God is here. And the practitioners like Kelly Rowland and Michelle Williams and all those other people and are here.
I understand.
And so whether it's Beyonce or Patti LaBelle or Anita Baker or Jasmine Sullivan or whoever else has an album that is cohesive. Jasmine Sullivan releases albums like every 5 years, y'all. I was in high school. Shit, damn, I just gave fuck. Anyway, y'all get my point. All I have to say is, y'all are going to see these new spiritualists pop in and pop out. They are practitioners. They have not studied. They don't feel responsible for your life. They don't feel a responsibility to the world. They have responsibility to their motherfucking bills. And that's why they saying to you, you ready to skip the line? You ready to skip that line? Because they need those. They need those $20 to pay a bill. I need you to figure out that $20 an hour ain't shit, so that I can sleep well at night. Because my soul is concerned with the suffering of the world and also the advancement of our community. You are concerned with the suffering of your family
and
a cash advance. It's wrong with it because people got to eat, but they should be out here trying to teach people and shit.
And I think everybody is so quick to want to clamor for the label because it'll give them more clout, because it'll let them bring in more money, because it's a woo-woo mysticism to it, without having the actual knowledge or the backstory or the education or the connection that is required to make any of this happen in the first place. Like, okay, I'm not a hater, but whatever, fuck it. I am so tired of seeing everybody put on the costume, right? And all of a sudden, you was hood as hell last week, and there ain't nothing wrong with that. If that's who you are, that's who you are. However, this week, now you're priest boom shakalaka, and we're supposed to fall down, and beg for your tutelage. I can't get with that. I can't get with the performative, fake it for the clout situations. Like if I see one more person roll over with a head wrap and a nose ring and talk about, oh, I burnt incense, so spirit speaks to me, I'm gonna have a problem. And I feel like going back to the very beginning of our conversation, what has come before, yes, there's always going to be a snake oil salesman. There's always going to be somebody with a cart saying that they got some powers that they don't have. However, the original intent, the original purpose, what made us so powerful in the very first place, now we playing dress up. And personally, that pisses me off. I don't care what religious, if you want to call it a religion, what practice you have. I mean, you look at all quote unquote marginalized people of whatever country or whatever lineage, their spiritual strength has always been something that has been kept sacred, that has been, if you look at indigenous peoples, if you look at Pacific Islanders, if you look at all of these different people from around, you go to a fucking rugby match and they're doing a war dance to start their game because it's that real. And we're up here playing bullshit. And it boggles my mind, but we're like, no, we're reclaiming our roots. No, you're making a mockery of this shit.
Well, shit. You know what? If I show up tomorrow, I'm reclaiming my roots too. Assalamu alaikum. You know what I'm saying? This how y'all motherfuckers be looking. Y'all literally legit, like the way I just flipped the switch on my religion, bitch, I changed that's how y'all niggas be looking. I agree with you. I gotta run outside real quick. I'll be back in like 30 seconds. Just give me 30 seconds. But hold that thought because I got a question for you.
Okay.
Hold that thought.
I got you. Well, for those that have joined us for this week's couch conversation, it has in fact been entertaining, but I hope that you are learning something from it. I hope that you're gleaning some sort of knowledge or understanding, even more so than that this is not to be played with, that our ancestral traditions, no matter what sort of open or closed system you choose to belong to, they serve a purpose. And it's bigger than getting you a man and trying to break up somebody's house. Like, we have more to do. And we need to be respectful of that just in and of ourselves. Like, we want to be so quick to, we talk about white people like Hoodoo Delish and all these people that want to jump into our religions and make money off of them. We talk shit about butter candles and using glitter and all this other stuff, but then we turn around and do the same damn shit. But we just dress it up nicer so it looks like it came from a heritage space instead of fucking Kmart. Girl, that ain't it. That ain't it. That's not what gets them. But that's another conversation. But I really hope that those that are watching really takes, if nothing else, there is power in our spiritual practices. Whether whatever title you want to call it, whatever understanding you come from. Because I know, like a lot of us, I come from a black ass, Baptist ass church foundation. You know, daddy was a minister, mama was the choir director. Like, that's what it was. But even in those redressings of our ancestral traditions, it was still there. They catching the Holy Ghost, others call it possession. It's the same thing. Our praise dances, our we go to war, we go to, we move forward, we send out dancers and drummers and things. That's who we are. Because we know that's where the connection comes in. I feel like we're taking this in another direction. And it's sad. It's really, really sad because we can and should be doing so much more with what we have. Because people that came before us was working a whole lot stronger with a whole lot less. And I feel like they deserve that honor and respect if, in fact, we're even going to pretend to call ourselves part of said religions or part of said spiritual lineage. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm listening to you wax so philosophically.
I get to run in my mouth sometimes, yes.
So I want to ask you, where do you think that these African spiritual traditions are headed in terms of Black liberation outcomes?
I feel like they're necessary. I feel like, and it's not like you were saying, we're not chasing the boogeyman. You know what I mean? It's not some amorphous enemy that we're not aware of. And I love how you talked about dealing with the self in order to be better for the community, because that's what my program is all about in the first place. But I think there is a necessity for a level of respect, a level of honor, and an actual learning that has to take place for us to use the grace and the power that we've been given, or that is innate within us. I don't think that, I mean, with every trend, right, it's going to ebb and flow. You know, Sephora started selling witch kits. When that shit stops being profitable, they're not going to sell it anymore. Once things start being trendy, nobody's going to care anymore. But,
Practitioners.
huh?
Practitioners.
Yes, practitioners.
I'm
But
listening.
even in that, we need to recognize the importance of what we do. I don't know if you saw the picture. There was a photo that they took last summer during all the riots with there was a man in the crowd holding up a black boar's head. And they were likening it to how the Haitians used their magic for the Haitian Revolution. Now, one thing about that is people don't recognize the Haitian Revolution went from 1791 to 1804. Like, it didn't happen overnight, but there was a ground swell of understanding that this is what we have to do, and this is, as a people, what we need to do, and we're going to put our energy and our magic and our power behind it to make shit shake. And I feel like if, in fact, our traditions are, number one, going to remain intact, and number two, going to continue to be useful, that has to be remembered. Did I answer your question?
No, you definitely answered it. When people talk about the length of time that it took for them to liberate themselves, like 12 years, like the number 12 in itself, 12 months of the year, 12 hours in a day. When I think about the development of a Haitian and a Hugon / Mambo identity, like, if the revolution didn't happen overnight, that identity development didn't happen overnight. And even to indoctrinate yourself into a new way of practicing, which is a remixed or evolved version of the way that you would traditionally practice. And that in itself is a challenge, especially again thinking black astrology, where you have the universe pushing for these hyper liberatory movements on a global scale. And this is what they did. They literally designed from scratch, damn near from scratch, from memory, from oral tradition. And then you think about these are inter-ethnic, the inter-ethnic communication that had to happen amongst these people. That in itself is a project, and one that was masterful, mastered and successful. I don't think that the average practitioner, especially the American Black practitioner, is patient enough to accomplish a new project. I think of Black Spectrum Network and the People's Pride Project, Shonda Land, hey Shonda Rhimes, hire us. Those are agendas that are working that are going to be working for decades, and even after we pass, to ensure that we can maintain cohesion in our community, that we continue to develop ourselves financially, artistically, and I just think that the conditions are the same. They're still fucked up conditions. Shit.
Mm-hmm.
The technology is different, very much so, and the racial status quo has shifted. No, it hasn't. The power structure is still the fucking same, but the violence is
different.
It's different and less prevalent, and now intra-ethnic, right? Rather, no, yeah, intra-ethnic, and I don't know if people are willing to develop tools or business strategies or agendas or social movements that meet the needs of the present day Black American. And I'm wondering if people's visions are antiquated or out of touch with the reality. If they're thinking about being a practitioner, people give lip service. They pay a lot of lip service to liberation. They say, like, I do spiritual work for people in my community. There's somebody that sells drugs, and I'll do work to keep him out of jail and get him off. And it's like, bitch, that's not liberating people. Girl, you stepping in as a guardian angel, not a priest.
Mm-hmm.
If we have to think about education, fair housing, unemployment, that's healing the community. That's liberating people. That's using your magic for the greater good. You know what I'm saying? To help mitigate the negative and deleterious circumstances that we undergo as Black people. But this other personal level shit that's validating for you and it's helped you with like this personal discovery, and it won't be written about in a history book, nor will it be spoken about orally. And the only way we're gonna ever find out about it is if your weak ass descendants do a divination on it. That ain't what we're talking about. We're not talking about that. And I don't think in any way is your message that you delivered encouraging for people to continue sitting on Facebook asking folks if they want to skip the line.
I know that's not what I'm here for. The fact that we're even having this conversation tonight is because the People's Pride Project, which is that's my baby, because I feel like there's like, number one, I'm gonna start rambling. Realistically, it started with 3 words for me: authenticity, autonomy, and community. Be authentic in who you are, what you stand for, what you're doing. Be autonomous in your free thinking, be self-governing, and recognize that you need to be self-sufficient. You can't be sitting there waiting for a handout or waiting for somebody to drop out of the sky and come and fix things for you. You have to work. You want to go to the people that read the book? What is it? Prayer without works is dead? Do the damn work. Once, or in the process of you becoming this authentic, autonomous, self-sufficient version of yourself, now you're an asset to the community. Now you can go forth and be like, okay, guys, This is what I can do to help. And from there, we all move forward. That is my goal for this whole project. Yes, I'm teaching people how to grow their own food and, make things in their home. In case shit happens and you can't go to the store, you at least know that you're okay. You'll at least know that, you don't have to panic. So that makes you stronger and more useful in and of itself, because you can be clear headed and approach a situation from a better perspective. So I feel like these things are all tied together in how things need to move forward. That's why I know people look at me like, what does this have to do with 3P at all? Why are you talking about this? Because it's relevant to where we've come from and where we are going. That spiritual link, no matter how you get it, no matter where it's coming from, no matter what you're calling it, that's always been our strength. Throughout the diaspora, throughout people that have been marginalized. I don't care if you're a fucking druid, a Celtic, whatever the fuck you call yourself. There has to be some link, or there always has been some link that held it all together, that created the community, that led and dictated or demonstrated how people interacted with each other and how things moved within the sphere to get things done. And sometimes you have to go take a step back to go forward in order to get things done. And I only say take a step back because you have to recognize the necessity for community, the necessity to have this overarching thing, because we know blackness and all of that, it's not a monolith. And I'm not suggesting that it should be, but there is a relationship that we have to each other. And I feel like a big part of that in our communities has always been, whether you call it the Black church, whether you call it African traditional religions, whether you just call it spirituality, whether you call it root workers and hoodoo, there's always been something that we gravitated toward to help hold us together and move us forward. And I still think that is very, very necessary for us to make any of the changes that we out there protesting and crying in the streets saying that we're trying to make.
Yeah, I mean, 3P is marvelous because it dreams of a possibility where a community can say, a community can stand up and say, "Hey, this is what we have, and it's one thing that we all have, one for all." And being that the Black community is not a monolith, it makes it a challenge for you to create 3P. Because people will try to figure out, well, is this for me? And you are telling them it's for everyone. The people that are asking, is this for me, are usually like, all for one. All
Mm-hmm.
should be for me. Um, it's marvelous because when we think about authenticity, and you push for authenticity, you're only going to you're only going to work with people that know how to tell the truth about what they do, where they go, and who they are, and what they want to do.
People that are willing to show the fuck up. Show up for yourself. Shit.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. An authentic person is also someone that's grown. We know people that have problematic opinions, and then later on their opinions become a lot more palatable and moralistically right. Right? Those people struggled those types of people struggle with authenticity. At a certain point in time, they struggled to be authentic to themselves, and they were fighting against. They always knew what was right. Then they finally learned how to be authentic, and it made them valuable to a movement. People that struggle with authenticity are only valuable to other inauthentic people, and they only create inauthentic situations. Um, the second thing is that autonomy was something that we've always had, and it's dangerous to white people, and so they took it from us. In addition to that, they ensured that we didn't educate ourselves spiritually or even with literature. They banned books,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, they want to make sure that we don't know that we can be autonomous, that we don't know the steps to take to gaining autonomy. Um, and especially when we think about something like barriers to financial literacy, right? Um, that keeps people from realizing their autonomy, and it causes them to make decisions that are inauthentic to their destiny, which is why people end up in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, when we think about self-sufficiency and community, you want the community to be self-sufficient, because that was a dream of the ancestors. Black astrology, again, thinking about that wave of Black liberation movements that happened in the 1950s, where Black people that were okay with segregation said we were going to be self-sufficient because we have the autonomy and we're authentic enough to say that.
Mm-hmm.
We also lived in a time where those white people were authentic enough to say we don't fuck with y'all. And so it made it much easier for us to be authentic, to build community, to be self-sufficient. And even if we couldn't have access to all the literature that we needed to be autonomous, we did the damn thing. Now we're put in a position where nonprofit organizations like 3P have to reintroduce us to those three important concepts. And not only do we have to be reintroduced to them, we have to believe in them. We can't study them. We got to really believe in them, which means that we have to make sure that our decisions are informed by the three pillars of 3P. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'm really excited to be here to help support you in this movement. For the people that can't see the overlap of how a nonprofit organization that focuses on the autonomy of the community through providing sustainable and healthy food to the community. There's if you can't see the overlap in that initiative, and me trying to awaken the genetic genius within African Americans and our allies, then you are inauthentic, and you need to discover for yourself what's causing you to be inauthentic. Now, I also want to end by saying this: just because you don't get it doesn't mean that you're being inauthentic. Some people don't get it because you were designed not to get it. Mm. You were designed not to get it. Now, some people get it, but some people were designed not to get it. I rest my case.
It ain't for everybody. You keep the doors open, but it's your choice if you choose to walk through them or not.
Keep the doors open, and it's your choice if you choose to walk through them or not. I hear you. Autonomy.
I'm just saying. Yes. Everybody. But it ain't always for everybody.
No. Because not everybody is, because even though you're creating a project that is, for everybody, one for all, some people are authentically designed to be all for one.
Yeah. It's true. Well, sir, I've held you hostage for slightly more than my normal 60 minutes.
Oh, shit, this is 60.
67 to be exact.
Oh, damn. I thought this was like the 60 minutes, like the news network. You know what I'm saying? Damn, I got my 60 minutes.
Yes, sir. We getting there. Shit,
but it should truly hours, so it could have been like R. Kelly shit. His 60 minutes. Ain't no way to do a fit in 60 minutes like that. Mm-mm. All right, but anyway.
I truly appreciate you. I thank you for sitting on the couch with me this week. I hope that some other people receive the same gems that I was receiving in the midst of your conversation with me. So thank you very much we'll call this your first couch conversation.
Uh-huh. And you're going to be sitting on my couch for Sophisticated Sunday.
Hey, I'm there. I'm with it.
Okay.
But thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome.
I will see y'all later.
I want to thank, before you go, I want to thank all of this audience and also that's in the comments, because you got a lot of comments. But thank you so much. You don't like this title, Priestess Sheena. Thank you so much for bringing me on. I'm so glad to be on this platform, and I will be sure to try to get this on my channel if you don't mind me doing it.
Yeah, we'll talk. We got no problem with it.
Cool.
But yes, thank you for everybody that showed up, left comments, supported from the bottom of my heart. Thank y'all. But I'll catch everybody next week. Bye.